Get some! All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and a Kasparian with you guys. Okay,
maybe.
Well, right.
Maybe,
Well, are we taking a break? Maybe, it could be. Anyways, seriously, we got a huge show for you guys. Of course, the wildfires in Maui, the planet's on fire as usual, but a twist, a giant twist in the show, where folks talk to Trump fans, MAGA, and found out they actually do agree with us on a lot of things. Not all of them, but some of them. Wait till you see that video. And it's not by us, it's by a union of all places. So, or a group
a more perfect union.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So that's an amazing story. Hold for it. Let's go.
Well, we begin with incredibly tragic news out of Hawaii. Let's talk about the wildfires.
Strong winds from a hurricane in the area, which whipped up fires already burning after a spell of particularly hot and dry weather, which some experts say is linked to climate change. The satellite image on the left of the town of Lahaina was taken last month. The one on the right, yesterday.
Dozens are dead and entire neighborhoods are absolutely wiped out in Maui following a catastrophic and unprecedented wildfire, several of them actually, that continue to burn. The fires are not anywhere near contained at the moment, and the conditions on the island were such that this hurricane and the high gusts have exacerbated the situation. We'll talk a little more about the cause in just a moment, but it was in fact fueled by the dry summer and the strong winds from a passing hurricane. The blaze started on Tuesday of this week and took the island by surprise. In fact, Maui County said late Wednesday that 36 people had already died as a result, making it the deadliest US wildfire since 2018, when the Camp Fire in California killed 85 people. Now by Wednesday, about 271 structures had either been completely destroyed or severely damaged, and the flames left some people just minutes to act. In fact, some individuals had to run into the ocean and then later get saved as a result of that. They had nowhere else to go, so that's where they went for safety. The Coast Guard said it rescued 14 people who had jumped into the water to escape the flames and smoke. And officials prepared the Hawaii Convention Center in Honolulu to take in thousands of people who have already been displaced as a result of this fire. A lot more details to get to. I just want to show you this map, which was provided by the New York Times using NASA data, and it gives you a sense of where the wildfires have broken out on the island of Maui. And you can see that, those areas are not contained at the moment, and we're hoping that they will be very soon. But climate change, unfortunately, has made the conditions there so dry in an unprecedented way that it has exacerbated the fire. Oftentimes when we make these links to climate change as a result of these stories involving natural disasters, it's not that climate change started the fire, it's that climate change created the conditions that exacerbated the fire to begin with. So we'll give you more details on that in just a moment. But Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the politics of this too, as to what can be done, what should Biden do in a second. But I want to talk more about how the fires got so out of control. So there's a lot of former plantations in Hawaii, and they've basically let grass grow in that land, and it's become grassland. And normally, like in the old days, indigenous cultures used to start small fires to make sure that they prepared the land so that they wouldn't be out of control fires.
Yeah,
right?
They do controlled burns.
Yeah, controlled burns. Thank you. So we don't do that anymore. And then what happened was extreme rain. Now, Hawaii's already very wet, as we all know, right? But now because of climate change, there was even more extreme precipitation. And that meant the grass grew totally out of control. And then afterwards, you had extreme dryness, which is not normal for Hawaii. So then that sets the stage for, unfortunately, perfectly, for a fire, and a significant fire. Then the winds come in that Anna told you about, and boom. It's 100% recipe for disaster. And who cooked, how did that recipe get cooked up? It gets cooked up because of the extreme weather events. There's usually some other factor like the grasslands in Hawaii, etc., right? And then things always get worse as extreme weather events get out of control, because then once the fire starts, then gas blows, gas tanks blow up, they add to the fire, more wind comes in, etc., etc. So is it climate change is specific for any particular storm or any particular tragedy? Well, it's hard to pinpoint exactly, right? But is it leading to the effects that we're talking about here that is affecting almost all of these extreme weather events? Of course. In fact, the governor said this is a once in a lifetime event. I got bad news for him. It isn't.
And it won't be.
And something like this will happen again and again and again in Hawaii and in other places, because this is what extreme weather looks like. It's exactly what the scientists told us. And so now to the politics of it for a second, Biden should declare a state of emergency.
He did.
No, not in Hawaii. I'm not talking about in Hawaii. That's easy. That's a layup.
I see. Sorry, apologies.
Declare a climate emergency, right? And he says he won't because practically speaking, he's already done it with his policies. No, that's
such a ridiculous thing to say.
There is no practically speaking declaring an emergency. There either is an emergency that you've declared or there isn't. There's no practically speaking. And yes, half of your proposals in climate situation here were good, right? And so that's the one thing that everybody gives you credit for, that went in the Inflation Reduction Act, etc. And then the other half were horrible. And then you approved a number of pipelines, drilling in Alaska, Manchin's favorite pipeline, etc. And you basically got back to zero. So that practically speaking, doing the equivalent of zero is declaring a climate emergency. And they say absurd things like this because there's almost no press in America. So no one challenges them. Corporate media goes, oh yeah, don't touch oil. It's all good, it's all good. They're not gonna challenge him on this. The right wing's not gonna challenge him, and mainstream media is not gonna challenge him.
I wanna go to some videos kind of giving you guys some images of what it's like on the scene and the kind of heartbreaking situation that the people of Hawaii are dealing with right now. So this next video shows residents trying to escape, and they're literally like driving through as the blaze surrounds them. I want to give you a warning because as they're driving, they come across a woman laying on the ground. We blurred it out, but I just wanted to give you that warning anyway. But it gives you a sense of just the absolute devastation and fear that people in Hawaii are dealing with right now. Let's watch.
We're almost to the end of the mill. We're almost to the smokestack. We made it. We're gonna line on the road now pretty soon. But we don't. Oh, somebody's down right now. Oh. Somebody's down right here. Yeah, somebody's down. Just go, Dad. We cannot do nothing for her. Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. Just go, Dad. Just go. Oh. We cannot do nothing for her. What? Just go. Go, people. Go. Beat the horn, Dad. Oh my God, bro. Oh. Dad, beat the horn. Just go. You gotta see. Yeah, I know you can't see.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking to see this. Also, a historic part of Hawaii known as Lahaina has been particularly devastated by these fires. I want to go to that video. It's ABC News reporting. Let's watch.
6 fires erupting on the islands of Maui and Hawaii Tuesday, destroying hundreds of homes and businesses, forcing mass evacuations, at least a dozen people jumping into the ocean to get away in Lahaina.
Lahaina is on fire.
Apocalyptic scenes in that popular tourist town and historic cultural landmark home to 12,000 people. Steve Scott desperately trying to fight back the flames. And you were essentially trapped in the middle of the fire.
Right, I was with a hose, shooting it up, trying to protect our building, and plantation house, all of that blew up.
Getting separated from his wife.
I'm trying to find my wife. I know she's safe, I think she's safe, but I haven't found her yet.
Yeah, just absolutely devastating. I mean, entire neighborhoods gone, right? I mean, the last time I checked, there were 271 structures completely destroyed. People's homes, their businesses just completely destroyed as a result of this wildfire. These several wildfires in Maui.
Look, the problem with human beings is manifold. One of is that we are incredibly arrogant. We think we're the center of the universe and we're so important that nothing could possibly happen to us. That's not remotely true. And the second problem we have is infinite greed. You just cannot stop people's greed.
100%.
If the entire planet could be on fire, but if oil executives think they're going to make 10 more bucks drilling for oil, they're going to do it. And if they think they can make 10 more bucks, they're going to go and bribe a politician. And all the politicians are going to tell you that practically speaking, they did everything they could, which was zero. And they're going to cash that check right before the bank burns and the whole earth burns. So this is a story as old as time. Our arrogance and our hubris is literally lighting the planet on fire. And no one in charge seems to care at all. Like, I know people in the climate activist community who thought, well, okay, I mean, these last couple of weeks is just record breaking in literally like fires and temperature and heat, and it was never seen before, right? And now they'll act. No, I told them, there's no chance they'll act. They're not even blinking an eye here. No, Biden is doing nothing. He will do nothing for the rest of his term. If Trump is elected, he'll go in the wrong direction for 4 years. If Biden's elected, he'll probably continue to do nothing for another 4 years. They're never going to move unless you fix the political system. And now bribery is legal and greed is infinite, so the planet will burn, period.
We need to, in the very least and in the short term, assuming that we can develop other sources of renewable energy, immediately switch to nuclear energy.
So there's tons of things to do.
There's so many, like, I understand the concern of, just not wanting to give up the way that we're living in modern society, not wanting to give up the comforts of I totally get that. And we don't necessarily need to give up comforts of modern society by switching to other clean sources of fuel. And we can do, not fuel, but like other clean sources of energy, I should say, right? We're not there yet with wind and solar, okay? We need to invest more, and I think that Biden has taken a good first step in that regard. But Germany, for instance, just decommissioned their final nuclear power plant, and they're replacing it with coal, right? And I don't mean to pick on Germany, it's on the top of my mind as I think about nuclear energy. I understand why people wanted to move away from nuclear energy, but at the moment, it is not a good idea considering how it's going to increase our reliance on fossil fuels that are exacerbating the situation with climate change.
Look, I think nuclear is a tough question and one that I hesitated on before. In fact, I never came to a conclusion on it. I interviewed people on both sides of the issue. Both sides are incredibly passionate about their beliefs and are positive that they're 100% right. But now we're in an emergency.
Yeah.
So if I was in charge, I'd say, give me all my emergency options, and nuclear would certainly be on the table as one of those options. And then you see if it makes sense or not. But right now, nobody's acting like it's an emergency. Like Biden's not calling together his cabinet and saying, what do we do about climate change? We got to act right now. No, they're literally, his cabinet is building pipelines as we speak to dig more, to make fossil fuels more abundant and bragging about it. And by the way, Obama bragged. Obama was like, oh, we did more drilling and we got more oil under my watch than any president. And now he's pretending to be concerned, but only barely, right? So this is the Hobbes' choice we always have. Either Democrats who do nothing and brag about it, and then mainstream media comes in and whitewashes it and go, they're amazing, they're epic, they're heroes, etc. Or Republicans who go in the wrong direction. So unless something very, very dramatic happens in our political system, nothing's gonna happen to address climate change, and it's only gonna get worse. So I'm sorry, this is exactly the same warning I gave you many, many years ago about gun control. And I said, there's gonna be a mass shooting in your neighborhood, I guarantee it. And when I said it however many years ago back then, people were like, whoa, Cenk, come on, you're getting out of hand. Well, nope, I was 100% right. Now there's a mass shooting every single day. Why? If you don't stop the bribery, you're gonna have infinite greed. They're gonna buy all of our politicians, and none of these issues will ever get fixed, no matter how terrible they get, because they don't care about you.
All right, let's move over to something completely different. Let's talk about a mother from Alabama who went viral.
I thought by teaching them what I learned, which is you work hard, you get a good job, you're going to get the things in life that you need, right? Worked for me, why wouldn't it work for them? Because it doesn't. Because the world has changed, all right?
Fox News, which actually tweeted out that video of an Alabama mother that you just heard from, apparently just realized that Americans are struggling economically because they not only tweeted about that, they later interviewed the woman that you heard from, Jessica McCabe. So we'll go to that interview, which unfortunately was one of the shortest television interviews of all time. But before we do, I think that we should listen to more of what Jessica McCabe has to say.
We struggled and it was tough, but you know what? We made it. We knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel with our struggle. It seems like kids today, no matter how much they struggle, they just get further and further down the water into the drowning point, all right? When I was their age, I was making less than $10 an hour, and I could afford to live on my own. Now you have to be making six-figure salary to get a decent, tiny little place to live. So what the is going on, and how do we help them as parents? I told my son, all you have to do is work hard, go to college or join the military like I did. He went to college, got his degree, got a full-time job. He moved back in with me right when he graduated from college because he said, hey mom, as soon as I get a job, which was within 2 weeks of him getting out of college, maybe take me 2 months and I'll save up enough money for me to move out. Okay, cool. It's been 10 months. He has saved almost every dime and still can't afford to live. Why are one-bedroom studio apartments almost $2,000 a month? Why? Like, I just don't get it. So I don't even think that there's even classes anymore. There used to be, upper class, middle class, lower class. It's literally turning into the ultra wealthy, and then everybody else is just poor.
Damn right. And that is a woman from Alabama. Look, I don't know what her politics are. Doesn't even matter. But the reason why I mentioned that she's in Alabama is because she's complaining about the cost of living in Alabama, which is a relatively affordable state compared to some of these coastal cities and the more expensive places, considering how much people have to pay for housing. But no, these issues are impacting every American regardless of which state they live in. And some of the outlets that have been able to kind of push all of these important economic issues aside and hyper focus on issues that divide us, all of a sudden can't ignore this issue anymore. And so Fox News ended up tweeting that because the video had gone viral after Jessica McCabe had posted it herself, and then they later interviewed her about it. But the way that they talked to her and how quickly they wanted to change the subject was fascinating. We'll get to that in a moment. But Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Fox misunderstood what she was saying. That's why they had her on and were into it until she started talking on their air. Because they thought she was saying like, oh yeah, Bidenomics, it's because of Biden. It's no, she was making a much larger point about the state of our economy overall. And that's why it resonated. It didn't just resonate with right wingers. I bet you most of the people who shared that were left wingers. And again, we don't know her politics at all. And she could be a right winger, she could be MAGA. And it doesn't matter, we're all living under the same corporate rule. We're all living under the same economic situation. $2,000 for renting an apartment in Alabama? How the hell is anybody supposed to afford that in Alabama? That's crazy, that's nuts. So look, we started TYT in my 1-bedroom apartment in LA, and that was $1,000, right? And that was 20 years ago. That's $2,000 for an apartment that might be the same size or smaller in the middle of Alabama. It's okay, but it's not just the apartment, guys. Housing is totally unaffordable.
Yep.
It's impossible. I talked to my hairdresser, as you can tell, the other day. I just go into random places, and it's good because I meet different people. And so she grew up. She's been in LA for 35 years. Originally came from Mexico. Got lucky because she bought a tiny little home 35 years ago, back when it was affordable in Sherman Oaks. She's okay, but she's worried to death about her kids because she's like, how do you? On our salary, how do you buy a home? Impossible. Even if you drove 2 hours, not too much, 2 hours outside of LA, Still, no one that works on a real salary can afford a house in this area, right? And it's true in the whole country, because her number one point that is brilliant and exactly right is there are no more classes, upper class, middle class, lower class. There's only the ultra wealthy and the rest of us. And that's what corporate rule looks like. And the entire country is vomiting it now. We hate it.
But let's also keep it real, right? Because you mentioned the homeowners. You mentioned the homeowner in Sherman Oaks who's worried about her children. How are my children gonna be able to buy homes, place to live? Well, the only way that would happen is if we really reconsider some of the restrictions on building homes. You get what I'm saying? Like places like California, under the cover, under this BS nonsense about like, no, we just wanna make sure that we're considering the environmental impact. Like there are environmental impact laws specifically meant to prevent new housing from being built in places like California. That's the whole point, right? Because when housing is thought of as an asset, and it is in our society, it is an asset. It is honestly the only, well, I can't even say this now, but maybe 10 years ago, it was still the only thing left for ordinary people, ordinary working people to build wealth. And so since that asset is what they've invested everything into, they don't want the value of that asset to go down. I understand that. So increasing the supply of housing is going to translate to, in the short term, I think, the value of their homes, the equity on their homes going down. But I just ask the so-called, NIMBYs this. What do you prefer? Do you prefer to have your sweet little home that's surrounded by pain and suffering, people dying on the streets, people in just abject poverty, not knowing what to do, where to go? Or do you want to live in a society where everyone's doing well? You still have your home, you're still building wealth, maybe not the extreme wealth you're building from your home at the moment, right? But still, you live in a better society, it's safer, it's better, and people are doing great. That's what I want.
I know. So infinite greed, we can't stop the infinite greed. So look, guys, it's not just a housing issue, but on the housing front, later in the show, we're gonna show you a video from a Trump rally where Trump supporters are talking about private equity guys buying up all the houses because they realized, that the finance guys, the big banks realize, oh yeah, real Americans are building up their assets in their houses. We should stop that. We should build up those assets.
Right, yeah.
We should own them, and then we should just turn them into renters, and that way we control them even more, right? And
that should be banned. That should be banned. Foreign investment in residential real estate, where they don't even want to live here. They just want to park their money in buying up entire neighborhoods, buying up beautiful homes, whatever it is. We have a shortage of housing. Why isn't there a federal ban on institutional investors in the short term until we actually build our housing supply? And why isn't there a ban, honestly, long term until we've really built our housing supply on foreign investment in US real estate?
And so meanwhile, as this great anger rises in the country from the right and the left, the corporate Democrats are like, I don't see a problem. Why? Private equity guys are some of their top donors. Then you turn to Trump and the Republicans. You think they're doing something about it? Of course not. Remember about foreign investors buying properties here in America? You remember the Saudis and the Russians bought tons of Trump properties, and he loved it and he bragged about it. And he even said about the Saudis, they pay $30 to $40 million for my properties. Am I not supposed to like them? So he celebrates the infinite greed that has brought us this problem in the first place. So no matter where we go, we have these incredibly corrupt politicians who are all in the same group of people that are robbing us blind. And on top of that, you add student debt, and you, as she pointed out, credit card debt, as she pointed out in that video. She says, well, the inflation has brought up the prices, but our wages haven't gone up as much.
That's right.
So now we're getting crunched and crunched and crunched. Exactly, that's corporate rule, okay?
So this
and I'm sure Fox News celebrated it, right? Like, celebrated her answer set. No, they got her off the air as quickly as possible because they're part of the bad guys.
The interview was less than 3 minutes. They played her video, then the rest of the interview, the entirety of it was 3 minutes. But like a chunk of it was taken up by them just playing her video, right? Now, I want to just quickly mention before we go to the Fox News interview, credit card debt for the first time in US history has surpassed $1 trillion. Americans are dealing with over $1 trillion in credit card debt in an environment when the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates, meaning the cost of that debt is even higher now than it was last year, than it was 3 months ago. Okay, that is what Americans are dealing with. So listening to this woman vent the way that she did resonates with so many people. That is why it went viral, and Fox News just doesn't get it. You're gonna see why in this clip, so let's watch.
Jessica McCabe, who went viral, joins us live. Jessica, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I understand in the aftermath you've been slammed by a lot of Gen Xers who thought that the comments were inappropriate, but your son, who read some of the comments, actually feels like he's less alone. There are a lot of people in the same boat.
Yes, and I think that's one thing that we need to take away from is that it's not 1988 anymore. We have to, as parents, realize that the economy has changed. I understand inflation. Prices always go up, but I think that lately the wages are not keeping up with how big the inflation has gotten, and we have to listen to our children.
We're looking at these beautiful pictures. Gosh, you have gorgeous kids, and it looks like a grandchild there too. What was your reaction to 11 million people can relate to this and viewed this?
Oh, no, wait. She doesn't want to blame the Biden administration and inflation for the reason that this is happening. Let's talk about her beautiful family. And doesn't it feel good to go viral online?
Yeah.
Anyway, by the way, I give Jessica McCabe a lot of credit because even though very clearly, in my opinion, Ainsley Earhart wanted to kind of like move on to something a little lighter than actually talking about the economic realities that ordinary Americans are facing, McCabe went right back to talking about the reality of the situation, talked about what it was like to basically go apartment hunting with her son, said that even though he went through college, he did all the hard work that was supposed to afford him a well-paying job out of college, $19 an hour, which by the way, she said is better than what, a lot of people are making, definitely better than minimum wage. But considering the debt that people have to take out just to get a 4-year degree, $19 an hour ain't gonna cut it. It's just not. Yeah. We know that reality.
So right-wing media blames the Democrats, mainstream media blames the Republicans. Neither side ever admits that they have anything to do with it. It's always the other side that created the problem. Fox News blames mainstream media blames Fox, and they go round and round. None of them actually go to fix any of it. Do they get you higher wages? No. Do they get you your help with your health care so that you can afford rent? No. Do they prevent the abuse that private equity is doing to the housing market in the country? Absolutely not. Why? Literally all of the funders for politics and media are the richest people in the country. It's the same exact private equity guys. So all they're doing is putting on theater for you guys while that trash compactor keeps closing in on us while the media is telling you, oh no, everything is great. Don't you worry about a thing, okay? Just make sure you vote for our guy, backed by the same guy as the other guy, and then everything's gonna be terrific, yet nothing ever gets fixed. No, it's corruption defined, and the country is furious about it. And meanwhile, in mainstream media, they're like, well, I don't see a problem. There's no anger at all in the country. The status quo is fantastic. Yeah, maybe it is for you guys, but not the rest of us.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the video that we were talking about earlier, pretty progressive group goes to a Trump rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. But there's a twist, and you don't want to miss it.
All right, back on the social break here. Let's do it. Let's go to Young Turks members first. Rebcat, the political catboy, said, I hate how the planet being on fire is just business as usual. Yeah, well, that's where we are now, that's right. Dragonfire Math Magician X says, jumped on after a week of missing the show. Cenk and Anna are here on the day before the Friday Power Panel. The Earth is dying and the death has arrived in Hawaii, which is darkly ironic given Barack Obama's recent tirade about his 24-year-old daughter who annoyed him by asking him what to do to save their generation when he did nothing. He didn't just do nothing. He bragged about how we were producing the most oil of any country on his watch. And then him and all of his cabinet now and all of his administration officials, axelrods all over Twitter go, can you believe this climate situation? Oh my God, meanie Republicans. You didn't do a goddamn thing and you bragged about it. Now you're gonna come and pretend it was other people's problems. Okay, and if you ever point that out in mainstream media, you'll get banned. Because Barack Obama and his allies are untouchable, they're angels. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, how many disasters like Maui need to happen before a climate emergency is finally declared in the US? How many people need to suffer and die? Or is the corruption so deep that Washington will never take any meaningful action? Ding, 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 we have a winner. No, guys, look, you know me, I'm the most hopeful guy in America. I think we're gonna eventually fix it, but right now we're in dark times. And no, unless there is a massive, not a little, a massive political change. And that is not electing Biden or Trump. And I'm not saying go third party, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, because everybody thinks binary these days, right? But there has to be some sort of significant political upheaval. Otherwise, no, this current crop of Republican and Democratic leaders will never, ever fix it, ever, ever. If you said to Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and Chuck Schumer, here's the fix, press the button, you guys don't get any more donations, but the problem gets fixed. There's no way in the world they would press that button. No way. They take the money, and it's not a hypothetical. They already have. That's exactly what they do. So, let alone the Republicans who are awful. Stiff Upper Lib says, what really makes this story scary for me is that I did not hear a darn thing about this yesterday. This stuff happens so fast, there's no buildup. All over the world, I feel the same way as you. Over the weekend, or you go on vacation for a couple of days, and you come back, you're like, wait, was there 1 or 2 or 3 natural disasters while I was gone? Oh my God, there was 3, right? It's just out of control. Just Jim says, other climate news from beaches in Florida. Beach sand was 137 degrees and playground floor reached 177 degrees. But don't worry about it, I'm sure there's no emergency. Future in Doubt says we are walking ourselves to our own mass extinction because it is not cost effective to fix it or save us. And remember, it's cost effective for the rest of us, for all of society. It's just not cost effective for the super duper rich. So they don't give a damn about us or the planet. And then Rebel Dragon on a lighter note says, Anna, I love the hair today. How do you do that? We have similar hair, but I can never do what you do with yours.
I don't know. I just kind of throw it together. I can't explain it.
Okay, me too.
Sorry.
I just throw it together. Boom. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk England and Sean Carter. Thanks for joining, Sean. We appreciate you, Casper.
All right, so this next story is dedicated to those who actually want to think about strategies to win policy, as opposed to taking the moral high ground online. So if you're not interested in that, now would be a good time to dip out. For everyone else though, let's get to the story.
So here's my hunch. For all the focus on culture war issues, the working class on the left and the right have a lot more in common than we're led to believe. And if that's true, it could and should have huge implications for the upcoming presidential election. So I went to Erie, Pennsylvania to find out.
That's right. A reporter with More Perfect Union visited a Trump rally in Erie, Pennsylvania to see if there's possibly any common ground among the MAGA crowd. Do progressives and Trump supporters share anything in common at all? Well, we're gonna show you some examples based on the people that this reporter talked to. Let's start off with the first video where the topic of economic stress comes up.
Why Trump instead of Bernie Sanders?
What I look at is more progressives like the Bernie Sanders faction and stuff like that. We actually see a lot of the same problems.
And I would vote for a Bernie Sanders before I'd vote for like a Ted Cruz or a Marco Rubio.
Prices are just higher. Like you go to the grocery store, I buy the same thing every time I go to the grocery store. I spend $102 at Aldi's. I was just telling my uncle this. I'm spending over $200 now. So things are more expensive. I think people are more scared.
Our money doesn't have no value, and that's why we're having problems. this whole inflation thing. It's been building and building for multi-decades, and it's getting close now.
You work at McDonald's, right?
I do.
Do you feel like you're getting everything out of work that you're putting into it?
I believe I should get paid more. All I am doing is I'm working my ass off to get my money. I'm a hard worker, and I feel like I deserve more.
I work down in West Virginia.
Yes.
Yep, on the rigs for Evil Big Red, Halliburton.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Halliburton, we were 2 weeks on, 1 week off, so you never got to go home. We were the lowest paid of all the workers out there. I only made $13.50 when I got hired on.
For Halliburton?
For Halliburton, yep.
A lot more to get to, but I do find it interesting that when a reporter shows up at a rally to see if there's potentially any common ground, meaning maybe I'm gonna ask some good faith questions and see if there's any areas of agreement, you get completely different answers compared to some of the legacy media outlets and the type of questions they ask. It's almost like they seek out some of the unhinged stuff.
So look, I think you're gonna get a lot of both if you go to a Trump rally. And we've been to many Trump rallies and you get a lot of both, okay? You get the guys saying unhinged things, and yes, sometimes you get this. And by the way, this is more perfect union. They're in favor of unions, they're in favor of the working class, they're definitely progressive. They're going to reach out to MAGA guys. Now, what did we tell you guys? What have I been saying for all these years? And it's in my book too, and I wrote that portion 4 years ago, okay? So, yes, for me, my personal opinion is half of the Republican voters are unreachable. And they're in the culture wars, they're in this, they're in that, and you can't reach them. The other half are pissed just like us for the same exact reasons. But have they been misdirected? Of course they've been misdirected. So Trump's a con man, and therefore, unfortunately, he saw the discontent in the country, and like a lot of good con men, he was like, oh, they're mad. I can tell them I'm gonna fix it, and then I won't. I'll just get them to help me. And that's Trump. And so I feel bad, and I want to direct them in the right way, right? But saying like that they're irredeemable or that we're hopelessly divided, we can't ever come together on anything is terrible. It's wrong. Because look, guys, it's possible to do both. Nobody fights harder than we do, right? You see it every day. So I'm not saying you give up on social issues. I'm not saying you give in to them on social issues. I fight them on that stuff day in and day out. But if they agree with us on higher wages, why wouldn't we take yes for an answer? If they agree with us on paid family leave, which they do, if they agree with us on raising taxes on the rich, which they do, take yes for an answer. But no one else in media is incentivized to bring people together.
I mean, I can understand why. I mean, think about how this very segment is gonna be treated, right? As if, oh no, this is TYT providing cover for racism and xenophobia and bigotry and transphobia. No, that's not what this is at all, okay? It's about what you choose to emphasize when you talk to people on the other side, right? Do you choose to scold them and just make broad generalizations about them because of who they choose to vote for? And again, I've said this a billion times before. Is there some contingent of the Trump supporters who unfortunately believe terrible things that happen to be discriminatory, hateful, bigoted? Yes. Do I think that's true of all of them? I do not. So the question is, what can we do to change our strategy to build broad coalitions, not just with, reasonable Republicans, but also with independents, also with, yes, establishment Democrats or those who have bought into what establishment Democrats are selling. How do we build the coalitions necessary to improve the lives of everyone in the country? How do we do that? Yeah. And look, we've had 6 years straight of endless scolding. It hasn't worked. So what do you guys want? Do you guys want to keep doing the scolding? Because everything is getting worse as we continue with the same failed loser strategy of just lashing out on people and calling them every terrible name you can imagine.
Look, my hope is that we can build an outsider coalition. Outsiders versus insiders instead of Republicans versus Democrats. So Republicans versus Democrats is a fake game anyway. They're on the same goddamn team and they all get the same donor money. And here, I'm gonna give you an example from the Democratic side in a second. And then look at corporate media, which is a combination of mainstream media and right-wing media, things like Fox News. And what do? They all agree on economic issues. They all think we shouldn't have student debt relief. Every single cable news outlet thinks that. They all think we shouldn't have universal health care coverage. They all think that we shouldn't have a higher minimum wage, etc. When you ask actual Republicans and actual Democrats, they say, of course we should have a higher minimum wage. That's why higher minimum wage wins every time it's on a ballot. And it doesn't win with just Democratic voters, it wins with the Republicans, it wins with independents. But now let's look at the Democrats. I've asked every Democratic politician who will talk to me, which is now a dwindling number. It used to be dozens, right? But I say, can you please, for God's sake, fight for higher minimum wage? Not just, I proposed it, Biden and Schumer took it out. I guess we can't do anything. No, fight for it, and show people you're fighting for it. Show them, and they'll come to your side. I can't get a single Democrat to do it. They're all like, no, I'm doing culture wars. I'm doing something else. I'm on Twitter. Why don't you fight for us, you idiots?
Because they don't want to.
And you know what's gonna happen?
That's not what they want to do, Cenk. That's not what they don't. There is a reason why both parties endlessly lean into the culture wars, okay? And that's not to say, I'm not saying that because we shouldn't fight the bad policies that further marginalize people who are already marginalized. But look, I just think when you have corporate interests, moneyed interests, legally bribing, because it's now baked into our system, both parties to essentially continue deregulating, continue cutting taxes, continue redistributing wealth from the bottom to the top, well, what are they gonna campaign on? How are they gonna sell themselves to the electorate? They're just gonna lean into culture wars, which by the very nature of them is divisive because it has to do with specific identities and pitting those specific identities against other identities. They are playing all of us, and they've been doing it for a while now. So my question to you is, what do we do to respond to it? Do we keep going in the same direction with a failed strategy, or do we find a way to build coalitions? That's what I want to do. I want to build coalitions. I want to build labor power, and I want to build coalitions so there's actually outside pressure that points to these members of Congress and says, listen to me, you guys have to represent us. We are organized, and if you don't represent our best interests, there will be consequences. And those consequences are political, of course, but right now they're not afraid of us because we're too busy fighting each other. So congratulations on that failed strategy. That's the only direction we've been going in.
Patrick Bet-David is on the right. I went on his podcast the other day, and what do people always say? You can't get the right wing to agree with anything. They're so crazy, they're nuts, all of them. Now look, I've attacked the right wing probably more than anybody in media. And when I went on a show, I ripped Donald Trump, and his audience was furious with me. Then I said, look, here's all the things we disagree on, and you can see I'm breathing fire on the things we disagree on. Now, what do you think about paid family leave? And I explained what it was. You know what percentage of their audience agreed after that? From a guy they don't like at all, 75% agreed. It's so easy.
Let me give you more.
It's so easy. We all agree, but we can't find one stupid politician to fight for us.
Because not a single one of them is afraid of the electorate. That's the truth. Let's go to one more video. Let's watch.
Global corporations, do they have, the Goldilocks question? Too much, just enough, or too little power? Where would you place?
I feel like their only thought is more money,
right?
More power. That's all you care. Whoever has the most money.
Obviously, it's too much.
Yep.
When you have a company like BlackRock that's worth $9 trillion,
and Vanguard's what?
Vanguard's $8 trillion. Obviously, I'm not going to argue. There's a problem with that.
So you think the finance sector?
Yeah.
Does it have too much power, just the right amount of power, not enough power?
Way too much power.
The financial sector.
100%. Yes. These people really, a lot of these people they don't realize are unelected officials. So all these politicians have this plan for how they're going to fix the economy, but then they just get in there, they don't do anything, and they're funded by the people, and those people are not elected, and they control the people that are elected.
It is incredible how aware they are of what's going on, right?
Yeah, no, guys, look, again, we've been to thousands of Trump rallies. You'll talk to people that have no earthly idea what's going on. And then sometimes you'll run into people that know exactly what's going on. But they're so frustrated and the Democrats don't help them at all, that they're like, we're going with the wild card, right? And some of them in that video explain like, yeah, no, we know Trump's not the best guy, right? But at least he's like saying things that we agree with. And so I'm gonna get to that disaster scenario in a second, by the way. But look, 3/4 of Americans say that big business has too much power. Now, they mentioned private equity there. They mentioned, there's two guys that knew exactly what they were talking about. That guy you saw there, and then the guy in the white hair with the eagle shirt. If you watch the whole video, we'll put the link in the description box. More Perfect Union did a brilliant job with it. And thank you for reaching out to all workers and not just workers on your side, right? That's how you build coalitions, that's how you win. Anyway, let me read you these stats so you get a sense of it. A Vox Data for Progress poll in 2021 found 71% support for raising the taxes of the wealthiest 2% of Americans, while a Reuters poll from 2020 found 64% support a wealth tax, a slight increase from 2019 Brookings poll that found 61% support for taxing the rich. In my book, Justice is Coming, we'll put the link down below for that too. I show you a poll where it's at 76% that says tax the rich, tax the rich. And in fact, the Vox poll from last year showed 50% support for taxing the rich among Republicans. But does any Democrat take advantage of that? No, because they don't want to take advantage of that ability to go get those voters because their donors told them don't. We're not going to help anyone. We're going to crush them and crush them and crush them. Now, here's the disaster scenario if you're a Democrat. At some point, Trump, I'm afraid to say it out loud, he might figure out that all he has to do is pretend on two of these issues. Say he's for a higher minimum wage, say he's for paid family leave, and he'll win in a cakewalk. In a total and utter cakewalk.
I mean, you think he doesn't know that? That's what he did. I mean, he didn't mention paid family leave. I don't remember him doing so. But in 2016, what do you think resonated with the voters? What did he lean into when he was campaigning?
No, he did one thing but not the other. So he actually did 2 out of 3 things. So one was he said he was anti-corruption. He doesn't believe a word of it,
of
right?
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
And he was, and I again read the part in my book about Sheldon Adelson and how easily he bribed Donald Trump and all the things that Trump gave him for those bribes. Okay, they're called campaign contributions. Anyway, so but the problem is that shoot, I lost my train of thought.
He ran on the anti-corruption stuff.
Oh, right, so the 3 things Trump did. So fine, he runs an anti-corruption, he doesn't mean it, but at least he was smart enough to run on it, right? And then he says, I'm for the average worker, and we're gonna keep jobs here, and we're gonna make sure they're not shipping jobs out. Also not at all true, but at least he said it, right? And it made people look like he was fighting for the average worker. But on any progressive policy issue that the American people love, including right-wingers, no, Trump's not on their side. He said about the minimum wage, there shouldn't even be one. Your wages should be even lower. Because he's not an actual populist. So he's faking it, so he gets the things wrong all the time. And everyone around him is a moron of epic proportions. I mean, again, I don't want him getting the idea, but like if he just figures out that he says 2 popular things that are progressive, he's gonna walk right over the Democrats. And you know what the Democrats will say in back? They'll be like, oh yeah, Republicans for it? Then we're against it. We want lower wages for Americans. And besides, which our donors say the higher wages is causing inflation. So we're against higher wages. I guarantee you the moron Democrats would say that.
Okay, look, we don't know that, right? I mean, the Democrats still want to present themselves as the individuals who are looking out for the little guy, but it's increasingly becoming the party of the hyper-educated, upper middle class, and that's becoming more and more of a problem for Democrats. And the reason why they're attracting that portion of the electorate in particular is because of the fact that they're not putting action behind their words. The campaigning that they engage in that makes it appear as though they understand the economic anxieties of ordinary Americans. But we gotta go to one more clip, because this guy and what he says in this video was my favorite part of the video, okay? It just really struck a chord with me, and I think it's gonna strike a chord with a lot of other people as well. Let's watch.
There's so many houses for sale in our neighborhood. I was gonna go to town and say, are these all, can we find out, are these just real people buying them? Or is this like proxies? See, BlackRock proxies, Vanguard proxies. Are they buying all these homes so people can't own them and they're just going to rent them?
Would you be excited if Trump did anything to rein in?
Well, of course. It's just...
It's a monopoly that needs to be broken up. Just like, remember the telephone company in the 80s, AT&T? That was broken up.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be done.
Capitalism's not the problem. It's been corrupted to such a level, just like people think all the politicians are corrupted. But it's corrupted at the highest levels of these corporations, like you said, being owned. Instead of 200 of them, you're down to 4.
Yeah.
That's a massive control.
And you want to know what's interesting? Watch the full video, because he goes on to basically call Trump a crony capitalist.
He does, yeah.
But honestly, that does not speak well of the Democratic Party. The
100%.
fact that he's willing to support Trump, knowing that Trump is a crony capitalist, that means he thinks that Democrats are worse.
Yeah, because the Democrats gave him no other option. So if you ever see Biden or Pelosi or Schumer saying, goddamn Blackstone and Vanguard buying up all the properties, so then they're trying to turn you into renters so you can't build assets? Of course not. Those guys are their top donors. They're not gonna say any of that. That's why they don't say anything, even though they're pretending to be on our side. So, and that guy at least understands Trump's pretending to be on his side, but no one's actually on your side. And that's why he gets so mad at the media. And the media sees all that and goes, no, they are. Like, you go talk to any media person in Washington right now, and they'll tell you, oh, Biden, he did so much. He did so many progressive things. And you unreasonable masses, you still want more? No. He has to do what he has to do. He has to take all the donor money. Donors. And they've got grease all over their faces. They're pigs at the trough eating from all those donors. And we can't find one goddamn progressive in Congress say, those are bribes. Bribes. You're corrupt. No, beloved Democrats, we have to kiss their stupid ass. That's what we sent progressives to Congress for. Fight for these guys. And fight for all of us, not just whoever's in your little group.
No one's gonna fight for a damn person until the elected politicians, members of Congress, know that failing to represent the well-being and the financial stability of ordinary Americans and workers will lead to consequences. And the only way that there are actual consequences is if you have an organized outside pressure campaign, and that requires broad coalitions. That's what it requires. So we need to get serious about that. Otherwise, we're gonna have another, I don't know how many more years of the same garbage. And I'm sick of it. That's where I'm at. We gotta take a break. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT Social Break here. Let's go to YouTube members first. Ambidextrous Rex writes in, excited to read the book, Cenk, but as a millennial, I can't afford a home, get my first dog as an independent adult. I can't see how justice is coming. Well, ironically, as a millennial, you are the justice that's coming. But you've got to show up, and you've got to, like, with all the different things you can do, and in the book I explain all of it, and even Kirkus Reviews, which is notoriously tough, said it was a shockingly hopeful book, okay? And there's reason for the hope. There's numbers that back up the hope. But you guys have to go vote in primaries, and then we have to hold people accountable. We have to hold them accountable. If you just vote for Democrats in general elections and think the job is done, sorry, this Democratic Party the leadership is totally, utterly corrupt. They are not the cavalry, they are not the answer. We've got to get new people in, and they have to actually goddamn do it. They have to do something. And we have to get that stupid idea out of their head. I must bow down to Democratic leadership. Otherwise I'll be unkind. They'll say I'm impolite. Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, I am mocking you, I am. And I will until you do something. And you haven't done a goddamn thing and you don't even realize it. Schoper says, we are ruled by people who will be dead for the worst of climate change. Yeah, what does Biden care? What does Trump care? They're not gonna deal with it. Read the Calico, I so care about my family, I'm a family man. But my grandkids, they could deal with all the fires and the floods. Good luck to them, because I got money to make from donors. Read the Calico Cat Dragon says, greed makes politicians stupid. I wish it wasn't expensive to run, because if I was president, I know I could fix climate change. The solutions are so simple if you look at the whole picture. Brother, I mean, look, I've thought about it. I've thought about running because there's no hope. I mean, nobody's running other than Marianne Williamson, and the media assassinated her, and character assassination after character assassination. Have you ever seen a positive story about Marianne Williamson? No, or staff this or this, all sorts of made up crap and garbage, one after another, and that's exactly what they would do to me. That's exactly what they would do to everyone. Mainstream media is the #1 opponent of progressives. They try to bury us every single time. And watch, every time I go on any show, you watch it. If they're mainstream, they'll go, oh yeah, name a progressive who can win. And the minute you name anyone, they're like, they can't win, they can't win. What, I'm objective. Okay.
Cenk, you can get, listen, this is part of the strategy, so I don't want to dismiss the idea of getting decent politicians elected. But you can elect 1 billion progressive politicians. If you don't have a way of holding them accountable, they get sucked into the machine. You know that, we've seen it.
I know, and this is me holding them accountable. So, sorry, like they think, they're super offended at the stuff I'm saying.
Good, they should be offended.
And I want them to be offended. I want them to wake the F up. Anyway, we'll talk more about it later. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and these wonderful people who hit the join button below and became members. Erica Rutherford and Cognizant Reconstruction, and Kroger 47 gifted 10 more memberships on YouTube. We appreciate you all, we love you. All right, Casper.
Well, we've got more on Justice Clarence Thomas. The reporting continues, so let's talk about it.
Most complete accounting yet of the high life of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas shows much, much more than previously known. More private jets, more fancy vacations, more sporting events, all gifts from mega-rich businessmen and documented through public and private records, plus interviews by ProPublica.
In fact, ProPublica is not letting up, and they're still publishing investigative reporting in regard to the types of luxurious gifts and travel that Clarence Thomas is gifted with. And even though most of this unfortunately seems like it's legal when it shouldn't be, the big question is his failure to disclose some of these gifts. Are there potential issues there? I mean, there are rules, he's supposed to disclose them. And the appearance of corruption is still pretty terrible. I don't know about you guys, but my friends don't spend that kind of money on me for gifts. They don't take me on luxurious vacations. But the latest report from ProPublica, the latest expose, which involved speaking to more than 100 witnesses with knowledge of these trips, found that the friends of Justice Thomas provided chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers, chefs, and also other high-end business executives. So from their digging, they found quite a bit in this latest report. Let's watch this video, which gives you some of the details, and then I'll fill in the rest.
Justice Thomas has been living a life of extreme luxury for 30 years, underwritten by at least 4 different ultra-wealthy benefactors.
Earlier reports have revealed lavish gifts to Thomas, including a house for his mother and this 9-day vacation in Indonesia from conservative billionaire Harlan Crow. Now the list of benefactors includes 3 more names, according to ProPublica: David Sokol, Wayne Huizinga, and Tony Novelli. The report says the 4 moguls collectively treated Thomas to 38 destination vacations, including a previously unreported voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas, 26 private jet flights, plus an additional 8 by helicopter, a dozen VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, and 1 standing invitation to an uber-exclusive golf club.
So the question is, why would these tremendously wealthy individuals who didn't have a relationship with Justice Thomas prior to him getting confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, why would they spend this kind of money on him? Why would they spend this money on his travel, on a home for his mother, all of these lavish gifts? Now, Clarence Thomas says there's no quid pro quo here, okay? There's nothing that these people are getting from me. I'm not giving them anything in return or in exchange for these lavish gifts. But really ask yourselves, why is he getting all of these lavish gifts? And look at your own life and ask yourself, I don't know, do people around you just gift you with lavish things and not expect anything in return ever?
So that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. That ends the argument completely, if there was an argument. Has 3 different billionaires come and given you millions of dollars in vacations recently? Gee, I wonder why they didn't, and they happened to just coincidentally give it to a Supreme Court justice. I mean, this is a joke, right? But if you like jokes, I got more for you. I'm gonna go all the way to graphic 6 here because I love this quote from Clarence Thomas. This is before he got caught and people knew the vacations he was actually on. He said in 2020, I don't have any problem with going to Europe, but I prefer the United States. And I prefer seeing the regular parts of the United States. I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that. There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock and I prefer that. I prefer being around that.
Really? He does?
Walmart parking lots. Walmart, 8 helicopter rides. Did you take a helicopter ride to a Walmart parking lot? Do you understand the level of mendacity here? These guys are giant liars and they're sitting on the Supreme Court.
By the way, let me just quickly correct something. So earlier in the story, I said that these donors or these incredibly wealthy friends of Justice Thomas had provided chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers. No, apologies there. In this report, ProPublica spoke to over 100 witnesses that included chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers, chefs, and other high-level business executives who shed light on the type of lavish gifts that he received. And just to also buttress Cenk's point about how ridiculous it is that he wants us to all think that no, he doesn't like the lavish things. He likes to chill in Walmart parking lots. Just want to give you this example. H. Wayne Huizinga, who's got a pretty incredible last name.
I got a fun story about him in a second.
I'm not even being sarcastic. I like that last name. Anyway, he sent his personal 737 to pick Thomas up and bring him to South Florida at least twice, according to John Wenner, a former flight attendant and chef on board the plane. If he were picked up in DC, the 5-hour round trip would have cost at least $130,000 each time had Thomas chartered the jet himself, and that's according to estimates from jet charter companies. Now, David Sokol also arranged for Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny Thomas to attend University of Nebraska-Lincoln sporting events with all access passes. The group watched both the football and volleyball games from luxury suites. The football skybox, which typically costs $40,000 annually, belonged to Tom Osborne, a former Republican congressman who was also the head coach of the team for 25 years. And by the way, a lot of this stuff, I just want to be clear, there's no illegality here. Other than, I don't even know if it's illegal. I mean, he's supposed to disclose these gifts. He has failed to do so. I don't know what the accountability is. What is the enforcement mechanism? What is supposed to happen when these ethical rules are broken? But nonetheless, I mean, if you have a problem with this, and I do, because it appears to be corruption.
Of course it's
right?
corruption.
Come on, guys. Like
the biggest business owners in the country all happen to befriend Clarence Thomas after he gets on the Supreme Court and give him helicopter rides and 737 rides on and on and on because it's not corruption. They didn't want any favors in return. And then Clarence Thomas rules for business interests every time. And that's also a giant coincidence, having nothing to do with the fact that he's surrounded himself with billionaires. I'm sorry, I meant an RV park. I mean, maybe he thought the 737 was an RV, and with the chef on board, and maybe that's the kind of RV park that he's talking about. Look, I'm going to give you one from Alito, and Alito's relevant here to Anna's point, because when they all went into their confirmation hearings, they said, "Oh yes, we will abide by the ethics rules, and Congress can check us if we don't abide by those ethics rules." It's not a criminal violation, but it could be an ethical violation, which has a number of consequences, which, by the way, if it's corrupt enough, all the way to impeachment for Supreme Court justices. That's what he said when he was in the confirmation hearings. And now when they ask him, he said, "No, I don't think Congress can do anything to the Supreme Court." He said, we're above the law.
I mean, Congress isn't even considering doing anything. Like, that's part of the problem, right? The corruption is so ingrained in our political system. In Congress, as we've talked about incessantly on this show, also in the case of the Supreme Court, where apparently you can receive all of these lavish gifts, skirt ethics rules in regard to disclosures about these lavish gifts, and essentially get away with it. And when reporters ask you questions about it, essentially laugh in their face or send them a sarcastic letter, essentially denying them any answers to the questions that they have. And I do want to just quickly say, as for whether Thomas technically did anything wrong, this is according to the reporting, while some of the hospitality, like stays in personal homes, may not have required disclosure, ethics experts say that Thomas likely violated the law by failing to disclose flights, yacht cruises, and expensive sports tickets. And the reporter for ProPublica who broke this story explains that in a little more detail in this last video. Let's take a look.
One of the striking things about this reporting is that there are very few rules for the Supreme Court compared to other parts of the government. I mean, we've spoken to federal employees who say they can't even let somebody buy them lunch, let alone a $100,000 vacation. But there is a code of conduct for judges that says you're not supposed to be taking gifts that would make a reasonable person think that there was something improper going on. And we've talked to, I think, 7 judges now from both parties who say they would never take anything close to this, just violates judicial norms. And as a public servant, you shouldn't be sort of living the life of a billionaire, essentially, on the dime of people that might be trying to influence you, which is what we found is happening here.
And by the way, I mean, look, a lot of the focus has been on Justice Thomas. But if you have these wealthy individuals willing to shell out some pretty serious money for these lavish trips and gifts, I'm sure they're doing it with other Supreme Court justices as well.
Oh, of course.
So, I mean, are we okay with that? I'm not okay with that. The fact that the Supreme Court, relative to other government agencies, has very few rules in regard to this drives me crazy. That's unacceptable.
Guys, this whole thing's a freaking joke. One of those, some of those billionaires give to an organization run by the guy who helps pick these Supreme Court justices. He's the guy who basically runs the Federalist Society. They hired Ginny Thomas and pay her a really high salary for God knows what. So that's direct money into the Thomas family. It goes straight into Clarence Thomas's bank account. It's just a brazen bribe on top of all the vacations. But they go, no, Ginny Thomas, like Hunter Biden, is an expert on legal issues and this and that. Really? Really? Coincidentally, she is, and she's getting that giant salary. Look, bribery's everywhere. They're buying all the judges, they're buying all the politicians, and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it. And finally, that brings us back to Alito. Did Alito partake in this? Of course, but he says it wasn't so bad. There was a reason why he took the expensive jets, etc. Alito noted that his flight on Singer, which is another private equity guy, Singer's private jet was not consequential because, quote, it would have otherwise been vacant. and imposed no extra cost on Singer. You see that? Those private jets were flying around the country vacant anyway, and he just happened to get on a billionaire's private jet. I mean, you're all being asked to be on a private jet of Paul Singer, right? Like they're coming around and offering it to everyone. So Alito was like, oh, it's empty this time? All right, I guess I'll take it. These guys are laughing in our face. They're saying we're gonna rule in favor of corporations every time. They're gonna brazenly bribe us. And now Alito says there's not a goddamn thing you could do about it because we're above the law. And I'm not gonna listen to Congress. I'm not gonna get sanctioned. We're not gonna report any of these from our billionaire friends. And these are the guys who legalized bribery in the first place.
That's right.
Citizens United, they said corporations can give unlimited money to politicians. Unlimited money to politicians. So the guys who legalize bribery are not gonna be the ones that end bribery, okay? So the only silver lining in this entire story is that Huizenga might be a little bit out of money after he gave all this to Clarence Thomas. One of his top businesses was Blockbuster Video.
Oof, Huizenga. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back for the second hour of the show, just come back.
Just come back, all right?
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. When educated, articulate brothers like yourself
speak truth to power, it makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America.
Listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
On TYT, Cenk and Anna, and Stephen Leonard, and Detox Nurse Wendy gifted 5 Young Turks memberships. We appreciate you all. TYT.com/join to become a member and help support honest reporting. All right, Anna.
Thanks to reporting from the Arizona Republic, we're learning today that a prominent Trump advisor by the name of Boris Epshteyn was arrested back in 2021 for allegedly sexually assaulting 2 women at a club. Now, in body cam video, which we're about to show you, from that night of the incident, we hear a woman telling police officers that a man had been groping her and her sister.
Tony Soprano looking cute, white polo. I don't know where he is.
Did you see what happened?
Yeah, like all night he's been like touching me and my sister, especially my sister. I like kind of cornered her, grabbed her, and like just making her super uncomfortable, touching her. Actually, completely told him to stop touching her.
Can you define like touching her? Like what do you mean by that?
Touching her chest, touching her hips, touching her crotch,
like groping her chest.
Yeah, but then he kept like grabbing her, and I was like, stop, like stay away from my sister. And he's like grabbing her still.
So when you say he was grabbing her, was he like pulling her into him?
Yeah.
Grabbing her arms?
All of it.
Can you just go into detail on that for me?
Yeah, grabbing her arms, grabbing her hips, like pulling him in, pulling her into his crotch. Like, it was just creepy.
Now, the Arizona Republic is not identifying the women, one of whom described Epstein's actions as molesting them inside the club. The body cam footage also shows the cops confronting the man, and you're about to watch that in this next clip.
Hey, sir, I'm gonna have you sit down on the curb, okay? Okay, so here's the deal, okay? So for right now, we're just trying to figure out what else is going on, okay? A female is alleging that you touched her inappropriately, okay? Okay, so just let us work through it and we'll get through it, okay? I'll ask you about it here in a second. We just got to get some more information from her first, okay? Sorry? No, don't stand up. You're being detained right now, okay? Okay, Boris, so what happened tonight? What was going on in there? Okay, do you not wish to speak with me? Okay.
Now, if you're wondering who Epstein is and what his relationship with Trump is, he was a White House special assistant to former President Trump. And he is a lawyer who actually served a variety of roles for Trump, dating at least to 2016 and the presidential campaign. He also worked with Arizona politicians to attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 elections in that state. So after that 2021 incident, he did face charges. He was charged with assault, touching, attempted sexual abuse, harassment, repeated acts, and disorderly conduct, disruptive behavior, or fighting. The first 3 charges were dismissed, but Epstein pleaded guilty in Scottsdale City Court to disorderly conduct and served probation. And the conviction was set aside by the court in January of 2023. Cenk.
So he's one of the longest lasting Trump loyalists. The speculation, very well justified based on the facts in the indictment, is that he's one of the 6 unindicted co-conspirators along with Donald Trump on the January 6th fake elector plot. And that's why it was interesting that when the cops came to him, one of the first things he said was, "I have no power." So that's a weird thing to say when the cops say, "Hey, did you grab women?" Right? So I don't know why he said that, but my guess is Maybe he's done this when he had power before and could get away with it, and now he's saying like, oh no, I wouldn't do it without any power in his own head. So, but look guys, if you're a Trump supporter, he, according to the allegations, grabbed the women in the chest and in the crotch. But including if you're a female Trump supporter, I guess you're okay with that. Because Trump said he likes to grab women by the crotch, and you guys thought that was A-okay, and you voted for him. So are you surprised that one of his best friends and loyalists and top allies grabs women by the crotch? You gave the green light for it. So there's the green light in action. So look, I'm sorry, but that's the reality of what you guys did. So no Trump supporter should be surprised or outraged by this. God knows how many else of them are doing it, and especially apparently when they have power.
Now, of course, they should be outraged by this, and you shouldn't accept this kind of disgusting, abusive behavior among people in Trump's orbit or Trump himself. But I do want to tell you about the consequences that Epstein faced, because they did drop those first 3 charges. He pled guilty to the last charge of disorderly conduct. So in 2021, in the 2021 case, he was sentenced to 5 days in jail, but credited with time served if he completed 11 months of probation, completed an alcohol program, paid a fine, and avoided contact with the 2 women. But guess what? This isn't the first time he's gotten in trouble for some pretty disgusting behavior or acting like a disgusting creep. So the 2021 arrest was actually his second in 7 years in Scottsdale. In 2014, he was charged with assault touching, Jesus Christ, at another nearby club called Derek's Bentley's Whiskey Row. He signed a plea deal agreeing not to have contact with the victim and not to return to the venue to pay court fees and to complete 24 hours of community service. Apparently, the slap on the wrist in 2014 didn't persuade him to avoid committing the same crime again in 2021.
Gee, I wonder why he went to work for Donald Trump. And so a lot of folks who have done bad things think, well, the right wing will protect me. So they go scurrying over there, and generally speaking, it does happen. So do you think Trump should get rid of this guy? Or if you're a Trump supporter, you're like, yeah, nope, nothing's ever true. It's the deep state, no way. Or he should be allowed to touch any woman he likes. I don't know. I can't speak for you guys. But that's abhorrent. Yep. And at some point, by the way, enough with this guy. So on the 3rd time, are we gonna put him in jail? Or is he gonna be allowed to keep touching women in their private parts anytime he wants? It's outrageous.
When we come back from the break, we're gonna talk a little bit. This John Eastman video tells you a lot about how those surrounding Trump, those who wanted to assist him in overturning the 2020 election, what they really think about our democracy and what they think they're really up to. So that and more coming up, don't miss it.
Back on TYT, some programming notes. Don't forget to check out our podcasting network. Type in the Young Turks anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you can, leave a review and 5 stars, we'd appreciate it. You could, of course, get some of our gear at shoptyt.com. By the way, when you wear TYT merch, you will often make new friends because there's tons of people who watch the show as well. It starts conversations, and a lot of people have written in that they've made friends that way. And then I wanted to make sure that you guys are signing our paid leave petition. I have endless hope. I'm gonna keep on fighting until we get something. tyt.com/paid leave. Since all of our legislators are useless, let's push from the outside and see if we can get some pressure to make it happen. All right, let's go to member comments. Dissecting Ben Shapiro writes in, Jank, amen. This is why I love and we need TYT. referring to some of our rants about bringing the country together and fighting for us. And unfortunately, none of our politicians are doing it. Along similar lines, our guy wrote in, you gotta respect Cenk's endless fighting energy. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for saying all that. Jerry Ty 429 said Trump lied about draining the swamp, giving everyone health care, not cutting Medicare and Medicaid, and criticized all the endless wars, and he won in 2016. Cenk and Anna are right. Trump can easily win again if he plays the 2016 tricks again, and that's terrifying. Yes, and the Democrats will be defenseless against it because they didn't do it. They had all the opportunity in the world, and they didn't do any of those proposals. Camp Corona Dad says this hour one has been maybe the best synopsis of why we are where we are that I have ever seen, short of a Bernie campaign speech. It's so clear what we need to do to bring enough people together to actually win, but it's already too late for 2024, and I fear 2028 will be too late. Tell me I'm wrong. No, we got a million years before 2028, but 2024 we're this close to being too late.
Who was that?
Camp Corona Dad.
In our
member section, yeah.
You get a $100 gift card from Blue Apron.
There you go.
$100 gift card, the way Jake says it. Okay, go to rewards at tyt.com. Thank you for saying that. I really, guys, I just want to accomplish the policies desperately. Thank you for getting it. I appreciate you so much more than you understand. Thank you.
Artist Sketch writes in on Twitch, Cenk and Anna are bringing the heat today. Love the passion. Savage Lou says, meanwhile, the Democrats are backing Cuellar. Of course they are. They just admit their corruption 24/7, but the media won't cover it. Mayhem Mendez says, Blackstone has bought a lot of real estate here in Amsterdam. Meanwhile, nobody can afford to buy a house here. So, well, there you go. They're doing it all across the world. We got to stop the corporate machines before they squeeze us all and turn us into chattel. Undertrader wrote in, I love how passionate Anna gets about the stories. Unlike regular media that sounds like robots, you know she cares deeply about these issues.
Thank you.
That is definitely true. And I will be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Dasu Rao, thank you for joining. We appreciate you. And Jamie Timberman gifted 10 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. Thank you so much. We all do this together. Casper.
Well, this next story is a doozy. Let's get right to it.
About whether we are going to, as a nation, completely repudiate every one of our founding principles. Which is what the modern left wing, which is in control of the Democrat Party, believes, that we are the root of all evil in the world and we have to be eradicated. This is an existential threat to the very survivability, not just of our nation, but of the example that our nation, properly understood, provides to the world. That's the stakes.
If you're wondering who that guy is, that's John Eastman. The individual, the crackpot lawyer who attempted to assist Donald Trump in overturning the results of the 2020 election by installing a slate of fake electors. Now, on the very day that Trump appeared in court to face federal charges for his effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election, Trump lawyer and unindicted co-conspirator John Eastman released the third segment of an interview that was clearly meant to basically allow him to portray his actions on behalf of Trump in the best possible light. Although, I don't know, Cenk, I would venture to say that he kind of failed in doing that.
Yeah, but it goes to very interesting point about why they do what they do. So for the extreme right wing, which he's in, they really think the other side winning means the end of Western civilization, end of existence. And so that's why they think stealing an election, not that big a deal if the alternative is that Western civilization in America ends.
You know, that would be a fascinating poll. Because I am curious, because I think that there's a sizable portion of Trump supporters who genuinely think that Trump won the election, right?
Are you kidding me? A majority of Republicans believe it.
No, exactly. Okay, so but what percentage of them know that Trump lost the election and are totally fine with him stealing an election? or just illegally overturning the results of the election and going against the will of the American people. That's what I want. I think that's actually really interesting information.
Yeah, well, look, but for those voters, they don't really know what happened, right? And especially for the Trump voters. But Eastman does.
Yeah, he does, exactly.
Eastman is the guy who plotted to steal an election. And get the irony of him saying like, well, I'm worried about Western civilization and because that's why we had to do this. So you did a fake elector plot, which would in essence be a coup against democracy, the cornerstone of Western civilization, because you thought you had to protect Western civilization. But why? Why do they think that? Because for guys like Eastman, they don't think all of us together are America. He thinks, no, we're America and we tolerate the rest of you guys. But if you guys are in charge, it's not really America anymore. So that's why I have to stop you by any means necessary.
No, John, we barely tolerate you. But let's go to the next clip. Let me set it up for you because in a video that he released last week, Eastman defended his efforts as necessary to save America from the Democratic Party. And according to him, Trump is the only one who can do that. So let's watch what he had to say.
Trump seems to understand that in a way a lot of Republican establishment types in Washington don't. And it's the reason he gets so much support in the hinterland, in the flyover country. People are fed up with folks, get along, go along, while the country is being destroyed. And so I think the stakes are much bigger. And that means a stolen election that thwarts the will of the people trying to correct course and get back on a path that understands the significance and the nobility of America and the American experiment is really at stake, and we ought to fight for it. Then there are no longer any impediments to them preventing us from ever having a fair election again, which means there are no impediments to them blocking the consent of the governed having control of the direction of the government. And we no longer are free people. Right. And those are the stakes. And if those are the stakes, what are you supposed to do? Just sit around and twiddle your thumb? It would be too messy to do anything about this. I'll just, and maybe when the alligators come for everybody else, they'll eat me last.
So he's the one who wanted to implement the strategy, the scheme of using the fake electors to steal the election. But notice how he's presenting this as it was a stolen election and we were trying to reverse course. No. He knew what he was doing was reversing the results and the will of the American voters. He knew that.
Guys, it's in the emails he writes where he says, we all are gonna need lawyers and we need Trump to pardon us because he knows he's breaking the law. Mm-hmm. He's a lawyer. He knows that he's the one trying to steal the election. And that's why he says, oh, what, you're not gonna do something because it'd be too messy? What does he mean by messy? He means we get these fake electors, they sign fake documents, and we cause this mess. The House then, the Republicans in the House vote in favor of us, and we just ironically flat out steal the election. Because in his mind, people that don't look like him running the country isn't America. And to him, that's it, it's over. The end of America as he knows it. And so, and for the right wingers that are in this group, the idea of losing power to the rest of us means the end of civilization to them. Because they view having power as their birthright and an entitlement that they will never, ever give up. And that is why they riled people up and then they attacked the Capitol because they thought, no, this is our house. How dare you, just because you outnumber us and this is a democracy. No, we rule forever. And that's what he means by Western civilization.
All right, I want to reset for this next part of the story because it's related, but I think it deserves its own conversation. So, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was at some sort of political event where she was speaking before constituents. And during this event, there was a person in the audience who was calling for Democrats to be tried for treason and be executed for treason. And what is difficult to stomach is that regardless of how crazy and potentially violent some of these individuals might be, or their proposals might be, you can't rely on people like Marjorie Greene to shoot down the stupid and violent suggestions that are being put out there. So here's the video in question. We'll talk about it once we come back.
And I want to, yes, sir. I'm going to do one more. Yes, sir.
What is the penalty for treason? Okay, we know treason has been deleted, and nobody having to answer for it. Something has got to be done. It's treason. Our country, our Constitution has been stomped under the feet. It's written according to the Bible. Like you said, we got to get prayers for the country. And we got people got to be tried for treason.
And death penalty. Well, I think we're ending on a right note.
When you start propagandizing and spreading this idea that your political opponents are traitors to the country, that they are dangerous individuals and they must be brought to justice, what do you think some people who might be particularly unhinged might think about doing? Especially if the message here, because the message here is they should be tried for treason, but no one's doing anything about their treason, right?
No, they're definitely saying let's kill them. That's super obvious at the end. She said death penalty, and Marjorie Taylor Greene was delighted. She cackled at the idea. So look, you can talk about how people have betrayed the country. That's perfectly normal. I talk about it, okay? I think Trump tried to do a coup, and Rudy and Bannon, et cetera. Have you ever heard us calling for their execution?
Not once.
Never,
not once.
ever, not even close, right? In fact, when they go to arrest them for doing a coup, I mean, the highest crime against America, the Republicans go, oh, come on. You can't arrest our beloved, dear leader. But for the Democrats who didn't do a coup, they're like, well, let's kill him. So, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is an actual United States Congresswoman going, yeah, that's a good way to end.
That's great, yeah, let's end on a good note.
Maniac.
But like, let's compare apples to apples, okay? So let's say we cover a Trump story, it gets someone in the audience riled up, right? They write in, we're reading comments, and someone suggests something violent. What do you do in that situation, Cenk? You immediately condemn it and say, no, we don't engage in political violence, period. It's not hard to do.
You've seen me do it so many times. Anytime anybody goes anywhere near violence, I go, don't do that. That is a terrible idea, it is immoral, it is counterproductive, et cetera, right? And then meanwhile, you got politicians on their side laughing it up about murdering the other side. I mean, they say we have Trump derangement syndrome. Are you insane? You guys have Democratic derangement syndrome. You think Democrats are like these child molesting, eating the children, and they're doing coups when you guys are doing coups, and let's kill them, right? 41% of Republicans now say it might be time for violence.
Well, they have Republican politicians like Marjorie Greene going around arguing that the election was stolen by Biden, even though there's no evidence of that, even though the Trump campaign took that argument to court, not once, not twice, not 12 times, not 24 times, 60 times, 60 times. Failed to show a shred of evidence of widespread voter fraud, failed to win a single case. Well, one case they won a little bit in Pennsylvania, which made no difference at all when it came to that state. But my point here is the election was not stolen from Trump. I believe that Marjorie Greene knows that, but still goes around the country, riles up the Republican base by making them think the election was stolen. Okay, so this is the reason why people get so angry, because they think that democracy was stolen from them.
I know, and look here, the #1 culprits by a landslide is right-wing leaders, both the politicians and the media. How often has right-wing media pointed out that he lost those 60 cases, and in none of those cases did he ever present any evidence? In Pennsylvania, that half win didn't say that the Pennsylvania election was wrong and that there was fraud and that Trump had won. It didn't say any of that. And you can go look it up. You could look up the other 61 cases too. You could look them all up. And at one point, the judge says to Rudy Giuliani, "Are you going to present any evidence?" And he says, "No." And now Giuliani's arguing like, I mean, I didn't have to have evidence, did I? No, of course I don't have any evidence. So, but right-wing voters don't know that because they listen to the total deranged liars in right-wing media who make it seem like the election was stolen from Trump. It's a total, utter lie. They're all liars. They lie to you 24/7. That's why you never got the facts if you're a right-winger.
I gotta give you some other incredibly irresponsible and unhinged behavior from Marjorie Greene. It's not funny, it's not cute. In this political climate, it's dangerous, irresponsible, and stupid. So back in 2019, she had liked a post on Facebook in regard to basically retaliating against, at the time, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, right? And the comment said that a bullet to the head would be quicker. And she liked that, Marjorie Greene liked that, okay? Now, in one Facebook post from April of 2018, Greene wrote conspiratorially about the Iran deal, one of former President Barack Obama's signature foreign policy achievements. A commenter asked Greene, quote, "Now, do we get to hang them?" Meaning H&O, referring to Obama and Hillary Clinton. Greene replied, "Stage is being set, players are being put in place. We must be patient. This must be done perfectly, or liberal judges would let them off."
So that's how many times she's talked about murdering Democrats. And then remember her latest stupid ad for her stupid podcast where she walks out with the automatic weapon, the assault weapons, and it's all violent imagery and shooting. And then it's not target practice, etc. She's doing it right in front of the Capitol, right? So egging him on. And then, hey, look at that, Trump supporters popping up, trying to murder Obama, trying to murder Biden. Oh, what a coincidence.
Just yesterday, there was a man out of the state of Utah who was making specific and serious threats about assassinating President Joe Biden. Federal agents went to his home to conduct a raid. The guy's gone, he's dead now, okay? So all of this crazy, violent propaganda seeping into the minds of Americans, some of whom have mental health issues, is not funny and it's super irresponsible. But she's gonna keep doing it. She's gonna keep riling people up with all sorts of lies about how Trump was wronged and how the election was stolen. There's nothing that can be done to stop it. She's just gonna keep doing it. She's not the only one.
She's a deranged liar, totally and utterly deranged. And so Republicans, man, find new leaders. They can believe the same things you believe, but they don't have to call for violence and executions, etc. They don't have to try to steal elections and do coups against America and do fake elector plots. And when they lose, cry like babies and then ask their followers to break into the Capitol, try to murder his own vice president. You have a bunch of deranged lunatics running the Republican Party. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump are prime examples. Do better, Republicans.
All right, when we come back, an exchange I particularly enjoyed between Steve Doocy and Brian Kilmeade over the Hunter Biden investigation. Do not miss it, we'll be right back.
During the social break, and Nathan S. Nucleus writes in on YouTube super chat. These are the young Turks we love. Thanks for the fight, you two. Cheers. Appreciate you. Thomas Daniel says, Cenk, I'm excited to get your book next month. It must be tough trying not to spoil anything every time you talk about it. Thanks for saying that, Thomas. Everybody can get the book at tyt.com/justice. By the way, look, this is super rough, but if you sell about 5,000 books, you get on the bestseller list. It's not that like. It's for book sales, that's a big number these days, right? But that is enormously doable. And so, and I guarantee you put a progressive book like mine on the bestseller list and heads are gonna explode. The people in mainstream media won't be able to believe it. They're like, no, this radical? People like this book about how we're all corrupt? No, that can't be true. Well, let's see what happens. tyt.com/justice. Dank Pro says, I've been watching TYT for 15 years. Please ignore the Twitter trolls and YouTube woke scolds. They have an outside sense of self and try to grow their audience by attacking you. They're not worth your time or attention. Thank you, Dank Pro. I appreciate it, and I think you're right. All right, anyway, me being me 24 wrote like 4 or 5 comments about how we should never work with the Republicans. They're fascist, etc. Now you saw me go after Republicans now, as I do every single day, probably 8 times a day, right? But when they agree with you, you're not gonna take yes for an answer. Okay, be irrational, do anything you like, but it is deeply, deeply irrational to say, oh, they'd like paid family leave too. Oh, they'd like higher minimum wage.
Well, you know,
no, I don't want it. I don't want it because I don't want to work with them.
I know. Well, look, to be fair, moral superiority, or at least perceived moral superiority, is definitely much better than improving people's lives.
Yeah.
According to this guy. So congratulations.
That person, I don't know who it is. All right, Jeff
person.
Beltari wrote in, man, you're bringing it tonight. Thank you, Jeff, we appreciate you. Kieran Murphy wrote in the members section, what happened to Wolfpack is a constitutional convention still the best way to get money out of politics? Definitely it is, wolf-pack.com. You'll be shocked to find out who's fighting a constitutional convention the hardest. Democratic leadership. Of course, well then how else would they get their bribes? So they're pretending it's like a right-wing plot to take money out of politics? There's nothing that they won't sink to. All right, Fortnite Pro, AKA Be Kind Dragon says, Cenk for president. I appreciate you, brother. And yeah. Anyways, Glenn Snyder, thank you for joining. We appreciate you. I like this one. Jonah Thorn wrote in on Twitch. Thomas thought the rich dude said a 7-Eleven, not 747. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but if you are, rewards@tyt.com. We all laughed. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Nice job. Love all you guys. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Glenn. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you, Anna.
Well, so far the investigation into the Bidens has been disappointing for the Republican members of Congress who have spent most of their time on this investigation, especially those on the House Oversight Committee. And now it has led to some fights among the hosts over at Fox News. Let's get to the story.
With all due respect, the Republicans need better investigators because they've got a lot of circumstantial evidence, but they have not shown that Joe Biden profited personally,
they're doing
or
great.
that he broke any rules.
I vehemently disagree.
It's all circumstantial.
This is
Brian.
so. No, let me finish.
You just watched the beginning of a pretty heated debate between hosts Steve Doocy and Brian Kilmeade over at Fox and Friends. Now, the whole topic here has to do with the investigation into the Bidens, and what the Republican members of the House Oversight Committee are desperately trying to do here is find a link indicating that Joe Biden accepted money from foreign interests, from foreign business partners who were working with Hunter Biden, and that there was some sort of quid pro quo involved, some sort of bribery scheme. Now they have come up short, and Steve Doocy is just keeping it real about that. But Brian Kilmeade, he don't like that. So I do want to give you some more footage from that whole debate, and then I'll fill in the blanks. Let's watch.
This is funny, but but this is funneling right to him at a rapid pace. They've had this job for about 8 months.
What's funneling it?
Everything
is money funneling it.
Is Joe involved? Is Joe's presence involved in every major business deal that Hunter was involved in? As Andy McCarthy said, Joe was the business. He had the access. Hunter didn't.
So
Hunter
Brian,
didn't have the reputation. It's leading right there.
Brian, what laws did Joe Biden break?
If the American people knew.
Just answer the question. What law did he break?
Number one, the investigation is not done.
That's my point.
Right now,
that's my point, Brian. They need better investigators.
So do you not want to hear any reporting until it's done?
Look, all due credit to Steve Doocy for keeping it real, especially in this climate where I'm sure he feels pressure to give members of the audience what they want, which is exactly what Brian Kilmeade is doing. He's providing this delusional narrative about how this investigation is going. The investigation is not going well. I'll tell you why in just a moment, but any comments on that, Cenk?
Definitely. So first of all, what you're seeing there is the split personality that Fox News has now. Steve Doocy's basically representing the Murdoch family as they are pivoting from Trump and pivoting from the over-the-top lies, because the lies cost them $800 million. So that one left a mark even for Rupert Murdoch. And Brian Kilmeade's representing the Trump contingent, and that's what the audience wants. Audience wants lie after lie after lie. They want all the hosts to pretend that Joe Biden did it. That's why what Steve Doocy's doing here is really important, and why Kilmeade's super mad about it, because Doocy's breaking the trance. They basically have a hypnosis over their audience. They repeat things and they leave it at insinuations, which make it seem like Joe Biden actually did do the corruption. Did you notice what Kilmeade said there? He said two things. He said Joe's presence is at all of those things. What do you mean presence? It makes it sound like Joe Biden was at the corrupt deal and got paid, but that's not true. And he says, later he went to dinner with someone. Joe's presence, and then he said, it's all leading right there. And then Doocy says, right where? Right? He's like, so did he break a law? And Kilmeade has to admit that he didn't break a law. So that's why he gets even more angry. Because he's like, we had him hypnotized. We're saying it's leading there. And McCarthy says they're bad guys. Did you notice that? It wasn't a judge who said it. It wasn't a witness who said it. It was, he quoted a Republican politician saying, Biden's the big guy. He's the real reason they're doing it, etc. So all of these illusions and magic tricks, and when Doocy breaks the magic trick, that's why Kilmeade's so mad.
No, they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job. Remember when Doocy said that they need better investigators? No, they're doing a good job. Except when that bombshell interview was supposed to happen, right, with Devon Archer, the head of the House Oversight Committee, Republican James Comer, didn't even show up because it turns out not much of a bombshell. Devon Archer said everything they were hoping he wouldn't say, including, no, I would be shocked if Hunter and Joe Biden accepted $5 million from foreign business partners. I would be shocked, okay? Hunter Biden wanted to provide the illusion of influence with Joe Biden. Everything that Devon Archer said countered the narrative that the Republican investigators in this case wanted him to reinforce, okay? Now with that said, the exchange got even more heated with Steve Doocy and Brian Kilmeade. Let's watch.
The Republicans just need to present the evidence to the American people and say, look, they got to say, okay, we can prove
19 pages wasn't enough yesterday?
Brian, they got to say, we can prove Joe Biden broke the law by doing this. Or the Hunter Biden broke. That's all I'm saying.
So you only want a concluding sentence. You don't want to see the investigation?
I'm watching
this investigation is the most damning, leading to a culmination I've ever seen.
I said it looks terrible. We just need proof so the American public.
But you said the Republicans doing a terrible job. They're doing an unbelievable job.
I said they need better investigators to connect the dots.
Well, better investigators.
You know what else
we
disagree about this.
Just saying. They're doing an incredible job.
They're doing an incredible job. Okay, I gotta shed some light on the 19-page memo that was referenced there. If you're wondering what it is, it was actually released yesterday by Representative James Comer, the basic head of this investigation that's going nowhere. And it's according to the narrative coming from the investigators here, they're trying to argue that the Biden family's peddling schemes, influence peddling schemes, and that 19-page memo basically said nothing. How do I know that? Let me give you the details. An initial review of the document indicates that the conduct it describes draws heavily from past congressional reports and previously released testimony. Many of the details highlighted in the new memo date back to 2020, a 2020 report published by Republican Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson of Iowa and Wisconsin, which found that Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden's overseas business ventures were awkward and at times problematic for US officials, but provided no new evidence and found no instance of government policy being altered as a result.
So, did you see what Kilmeade said? He said, the 19 pages is the most damning things. Damning for what?
Yeah, what did it say?
And then Doocy says, well, we need proof. And Kilmeade has no proof.
Right.
So it's damning for what? And he's like, it's leading to a culmination. No, that's what Doocy's trying to explain. It is not leading to a culmination because 0 evidence plus 0 evidence plus 0 evidence equals 0 evidence. Okay, like leading to a culmination is 1 piece of evidence, 3 pieces of evidence, 7 pieces of evidence. We got him, right? Like all the Trump indictments that led to a culmination because they have people carrying boxes on tape. They have Trump admitting it's classified on tape. See, those are evidences that lead to a culmination. With Biden, you got nothing. What Kilmeade is saying is over and over again, this is what every Republican say, every right-wing media guy is saying this. Hunter Biden's so bad, Hunter Biden's so bad. Yeah, dude, yeah, he is, okay? And no, he's not a Ukrainian gas expert. No, he's not one of the top artists in the country. That's not hard, we all know that. The only people who won't say that obvious point is people who don't want to offend Joe Biden or Democratic leaders in Washington, right? But the rest of us all know that. That's not the question. The question is, did Joe Biden do anything wrong? Did Joe Biden participate in corruption? But I think he's corrupt on campaign contributions alone. It's not gonna take me much to convince me that Joe Biden might have done something like this. But it turns out, shockingly, he didn't. You guys have investigated him 2,000 times over. And guess what kind of evidence you have? 0, as usual.
Yeah.
Like your evidence on the stolen election, 0. Because your audience doesn't want evidence. They just want to feel good about hating the other guy.
Well, nonetheless, even though they don't have any evidence, there's no smoking gun. James Comer let Maria Bartiromo know that they're planning to subpoena President Joe Biden. Let's watch.
Yeah, this is always going to end with the Bidens coming in front of the committee. We are going to subpoena the family. I mean, we're putting the case together to win in court. Obviously, with all the opposition and obstruction we're getting from the Biden attorneys now, we know that this is going to end up in court when we subpoena the Biden. So we're putting together a case, and I think we've done that very well.
They're gonna subpoena the Bidens, unclear when that's gonna happen. Maybe he's just bluffing there. I mean, he's been bluffing during these interviews quite a bit, but it's just, you investigate Donald Trump for legitimate reasons. Republicans are gonna retaliate with these ridiculous phony investigations and it's gonna waste time, resources. Okay.
It's a dumpster fire. Comer's trash and he knows it. That's why he didn't show up to the damning Devin Archer testimony. He didn't show up because it was damning to his side. He's just, look guys, tons of Republican voters have no idea. They think Joe Biden actually took the $5 million, et cetera, because that's what they heard in right-wing media and they don't trust mainstream media anymore, right? But Comer knows. Comer knows with absolute certainty. That's why he didn't show up for the embarrassing testimony. He knows he's lying. He knows he has no evidence. So he's trying to embarrass Biden. But I don't care. I honestly don't even care about the subpoenas. So if I was the president, I'd be like, okay, have at it, Hoss. Try me and find out, okay? And I'd go up there and I'd rip their heads off politically and rhetorically, right? But Biden's not that guy. And but to be clear about what they're trying to do, they're trying to Clinton him. What does that mean? Well, let's start with something that we know isn't true. And in the case of Clinton, it was the Whitewater land deal, and it turned out that he didn't do anything wrong there. And even Ken Starr said, yeah, he didn't do anything wrong. So the Republicans lied about him doing something wrong. They dug in, and finally they got him on tape, and they asked him about sex, and they're like, yes, we found something after our fishing expedition, and we got him to lie about sex. So that's it, we have to impeach him. And that's what Republicans do, because they never have any evidence. All their politicians are liars. 200% liars. All they ever do is lie. And then they have that crying bitch ass graphic on that segment going, mainstream media is covering Trump's indictments. He's the first president to get indicted. You don't think they're gonna cover those indictments? But they won't cover our lies as much. They covered it for 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes too much. All you guys do is cry and lie, cry and lie, cry and lie. Republican politicians are the worst. Why? They don't even serve conservatives. What the hell have you done for conservatives? All you do is bash Democrats, play the culture wars, take all the donor money, and give the rich and corporations everything they want. Forget doing something for the general population. What have you done for the right wing? Nothing, nothing. Hey, right wingers, wake up. Your politicians are totally full of crap. We woke up. We know, I've been saying this for a long, long time. I know Democratic politicians are full of crap. I know all the ones that take corporate donations are corrupt. And you don't know that about your own politicians? You think Comer's honest? No, he's just gonna screw you and he's gonna laugh at you behind your back. Same thing with McCarthy and Trump and all of them. Wake up. All right, we have a great post game for you guys for the members, tyt.com/join. We'll see you there.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever.